Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and joining me this morning, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, this morning we're taking a little bit of a different direction and going into a little bit of a discussion. So, can you tell us what you've chosen for the topic for today?
Today, my topic is the idea that we can be a co participant in our own evolution, maybe even in some ways intend for our own evolution. Um, I've been fascinated this ever since I remember. And if we think about it, there's a lot going on in society. We've got comic books, which were kind of some kind of superhero comics, which were sort of fringy and nerdy when I was a kid, and now everybody is watching these in the form of movies. And then we have, of course, the opposite stuff. This pressure to kind of somehow evolve that we're seeing through the exploration of all these dystopian movies where everything is going wrong and we have to somehow figure that out. And then we have the rebel movies, which are set in dystopian times where things like the Hunger Games and the Maze, or the I can't remember now, Divergent, which talk about the need to be open to new ideas so that we can be carried forward towards a better future. So all of these themes in literature and movies, and I could go on and on and on. And then we've got the whole conscious creation movement, right? Things like The Secret. I mean, those kind of books are written every decade. And then we've got AI, and its potential for opening up our creativity. So everything is pointing in that same direction, which suggests to me that our collective unconscious is pushing us towards something. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So, so we have this idea of evolution, both through science, which is through trial and error over very, very long periods of time. But we also have this idea that from epigenetics these days. Have you heard of epigenetics, Kris?
I have.
It's the idea that our attitude, the attitude and the state that we're able to create in the moment, if we elevate it, it has the potential to affect not our DNA directly, but the expression of our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that, okay, so we got all this so-called junk DNA that scientists can't figure out what it's for. And nature is economical, God is economical, so why is it there? It implies that there might be something that we can reach toward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they've discovered, haven't they, that the junk DNA actually does something and that it can be reactivated and turned on.
I still think I don't know that they've firmly discovered that, or if it's still hypothetical, because, but yeah, that's kind of where science is leaning. So it's like, okay, how do we turn that on? And then here at Clair-i-tea, we are exploring all sorts of technologies that are in some ways related to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
With,
The osmolytes and the neuroacoustics.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
These are all about, and things that help us understand or get into different brainwave states like theta
Mm-hmm.
and alpha and beta and all of those and delta.
Yes.
So we're exploring these things,
Mm-hmm.
and human design and gene keys sort of have something to say to it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, human design says you are born with a fixed design, which has its inborn potentialities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you align with how you're designed, then you will live the life that you were meant to have, which means that you will show up in a differentiated way that is not the same as everybody else. The more you're in alignment with yourself, the more you show up as unique in a way. Because your own inbuilt God-given talents begin to reveal themselves.
Awaken. Yes.
Awaken. I like that. So here you have this idea that there's a fixed design, okay, which isn't far off from, just okay. I've got whatever genes I was born with. I've got my own genetic heredity. So that's fixed. It can't be changed. So here we have this idea. This is fixed. It can't be changed, and yet we can choose to live in alignment or not. And on the other hand, we have this idea of there are things that seem to be malleable and responsive to consciousness. So what do we do with that? To me, that intuitively feels right. The idea here is that in the design that I've already been given are potentials that I haven't tapped into. So I don't have to look for this idea of evolution outside of me. My consciousness goes to how do I evolve into the fullest expression of the potential that already exists within me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think recognizing also that we are not just this body. There is something within us that is the key to evolving, and understanding that we can shape reality through the unseen, and connecting with the unseen and connecting with the divine. And how we do that innately is part of our design. So we talk about, the things like the variables and all of these kinds of things, but
The
those
cognition.
things need to be in alignment. Yeah. Well, your cognition, your environment, all of those things have to be in alignment in order for you to be able to connect to the divine, in a way that is going to trigger your genius or your love sequence or your genius sequence or whatever it is within you that lets you become that unique individual and express in the world that way.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I think that people need to find their way into that conversation, the conversation about it being excited about their own possibilities, so that then they can begin to hop on that bandwagon, and get with this idea that, you know what, if we back ourselves up and together enter into the right attitude, that we could actually create a really great, we could make some radically positive improvements going forward in our lives that could change the fate that seems kind of dark right now.
Well, I think it's also what comes to mind when you say that is that people need to get out of the victim mentality and just look at themselves and look at their shadows and look at how can I be that best version of myself. Because in doing that, if each person turns within and becomes the best version of themselves, then that will naturally happen in the world where it does evolve and it does become, this wonderful place instead of a place where people are scared or, in fear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, Richard Rudd's work is a good bridge point to talk about, the bridge, what relationship does the shadow parts of ourselves, what relationship does it have to the highest potentials of ourselves? And we see that in the spectrum of energies that he talks about, from shadow to gift to city. So it gives us a way of understanding that we don't need to be as afraid of our shadow as maybe we are. That it is innate in us, and that it is not it is not meant to be derailing us. It's not sort of something that is something we want to excise, cut out of ourselves because it's unwanted. It's going to be there, and it's part of our organism. You can't chop off an arm, cutting off our nose to spite our face. That doesn't work. Except your nose. My sister told
Well,
me
I
the other
think too
day.
that no. Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it gives a whole new meaning to shining light on your darkness, on the shadow, because that, like we see the city, we see where we're supposed to go, but we have to shine the light and work on that shadow in order to get there. If we ignore that shadow, which is our power, it's through working through that shadow that our power comes, right? So I
Yeah.
think that the gene keys give you insight into that. This is the potentiality of what that shadow could look like at its, most optimum level, right?
hmm To
Mm-hmm.
me, it shines like a beacon. When I look at the city, and when I look at the Siddhic words relating to my gene keys, to my gates, activated gates, um, it's kind of like a burning torch of hope in my consciousness. It's like, oh, that's what that energy is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like I can feel it as a potential, and it becomes, as a source of meditation. It inspires me and uplifts my attitude and vibration. So
Mm-hmm. Well,
it turns out that we have more tools perhaps near at hand than we sometimes think for moving
mm-hmm.
forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's because it's work. So people are trained now to look for convenience and the easy way. And so I find that a lot of people are doing it through things like psychedelics and things like that. They're trying to get to that awakened state through those. Not that, I'm sure there's a place for them as well, but um, I'm just saying that people are thinking that that's the easy way to do the work, right? Well,
Yeah,
not do the work. It's just have it happen for you, right? Rather than actually sitting and going within. Yeah.
right. And I
Mhm.
mean, we don't have a vat of radioactive waste lying around so that we can somehow end up in it and be transformed into a superhero through some sort of
Mhm.
weird magical means. It's
Yeah.
like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but um, as some people have said, I don't know whose quotation this was, who said it originally, but it's like you can, you can, it's hard to be in debt, and it's hard to save money. So which hard are you going to choose? You know,
Mhm.
it's it's about um, it's about choosing consciously whether how we want. If our life is going to be hard, and it seems, many spiritual paths, tell us that it has this innate difficulty to it, then maybe we can choose some of that.
Well, I think that's the other thing is like you said, choose. It's a choice. It's a choice to look at it as hard, or you can choose to look at it as, not comparing it to what somebody with millions of dollars has. It's a simple path, it's a simple life, and it's about shedding away that excess that you don't need. Like the world has become so materialistic that we're all like, oh, I need a car and I need this and I need this jewel and I need I need the best food and I need, but you don't, like most people on a true spiritual path will shed away the excess and then
Yes.
from there move forward. And it doesn't mean that you're doing without, it just means you don't have any attachment to those things around you, right? Like I'm not
Mhm.
attached to my car. I like my car, it gets me around, but I'm not attached to it. So if something were to happen to it, I I'm still here, I'm still alive, I just adjust, Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a nice metaphor too for the idea of letting go of your not self programming. When we sink
Hmm.
into and align ourselves with our inborn mechanisms,
Hmm.
then all this unnecessary stuff, these thought processes and the things that cause us to overthink and become stressed in our life, they begin to drop away,
Hmm.
leaving us more relaxed in our bodies, more sensual and connected to our own energetic field, more naturally charismatic and attractive, but also much more simple,
Hmm.
not buffeted by this consciousness filled with things that, just as you were saying a moment ago, that are unnecessary.
Yeah. And putting masks on, you know, and saying, oh, I need to look a certain way, I need to behave a certain way. All of those kinds of things get shed away, right?
Yeah. I mean, what a waste of energy.
Hmm.
What a
Yeah.
waste of energy. And
Hmm.
then, a lot of our spiritual traditions say that, as we shed away these things, we can feel a lightness. We
Hmm.
can find out how to enter into a stream that feels in the flow. Some
Hmm.
people call it a golden stream. Some people talk about, this energy that feels like a wind horse, which is kind of Taoist.
Hmm.
Or we talk about being in the flow. And even though we may not be able to stay there consistently, we enter more often,
Hmm.
feeling that alignment with. I'm mixing metaphors all over the place, and I know
Well,
that,
yeah.
and I love it, and I do it all the time. The Holy Spirit moving in our lives potentially. That's another way of talking about
Yeah,
it.
well, another one is one of our mentors said it's a walking meditation. So you're constantly moving, right? But at the same
Mm,
time, you're in that space and you have clarity and you can see things coming and going, and nothing's really affecting you. You're affecting the world and you're making it how you like it, right? So,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Makes me
So,
think of that very last scene of the first Matrix movie, where all of a sudden he enters into that different state of consciousness, and everything slows down, and he can see all the atoms of the universe, and then he becomes able to shape them shape them as he wants them.
yeah. So, interesting conversation today. Is there anything that you want to say as we wrap up here today?
I would say to people, find your entry point. And human design reading can be a good entry point to an exploration of your essential self in a way that gives you information. Or the gene keys. Those are things that you can do with me. If you've already done them, you can come back and we can talk in this wide ranging way, where a conversation between us can help you. Some of the light bulbs go off for you that you need to have go off.
Hmm.
And some of those light bulbs will no doubt go off in the group that I'm forming, that I keep teasing and keep not kind of giving you the details of. But
Hmm.
it's in the pipeline, and it's like, all right, well, we'll get to it. So look out for that. October is our target. That's what we're going to do. So we'll tell you about that.
Okay. So, with that, we'll say goodbye, God bless, and everybody take care, and we'll see you soon next